Rogelio, and Raphael. Maybe they go through time as cops. Maybe it's like Van Damme's Time Cop. But it's...
Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday, April 30th, 2026. Here's a quick rundown for your commute. The legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is heating up as their trial approaches, and coverage plans are already taking shape. The idea is to provide live updates straight from New York City, with daily courthouse check-ins, interviews with people inside, and ongoing discussions and live streams to keep up with every development. For now, though, both sides are still arguing over what claims will actually be allowed in court, with the judge already dismissing 10 out of Lively's 13 original claims. One of the more debated issues centers on Lively seeking damages for lost business opportunities and reputational harm, including a claim tied to a sequel that was never made. Baldoni's side has pushed back strongly, criticizing the idea that she lost $35 million from a project that never materialized and calling the supporting calculations unreliable. Meanwhile, Lively's legal team argues that a sequel had at one point been discussed and that Baldoni himself had even floated the idea of her directing it. That claim ties into an older interview clip that's resurfaced, where Baldoni appeared supportive of Lively stepping into a directing role. At the time, it sounded like encouragement, with him saying that whoever took charge of a potential follow-up would do the story justice, and even suggesting that Lively could be ready for that responsibility. In hindsight, though, some interpret those comments differently, especially given what later came to light about tensions during production, disagreements behind the scenes, and the increasingly strained working relationship between the two. The broader argument now circles back to credibility. While Lively maintains that her professional opportunities were harmed, critics of her claims argue that the deeper people look into the case, the less convincing those claims appear. On the other hand, there's also the question of fairness. If her allegations were true, then the impact on her career would naturally be a serious concern. That tension between competing narratives is exactly what the trial is expected to address, as both sides bring forward their evidence and attempt to shape how the situation is ultimately understood. The conversation around Blake Lively being labeled a powerhouse continues to circulate, especially with voices like Isabel Farah emphasizing that she's capable of doing just about anything in the industry. That kind of reputation doesn't just come from nowhere. It's built over years of successful projects, public image, and influence. But now it's being put to a very real test. The real question isn't whether she's talented or driven, it's whether that perceived strength translates into winning a high-stakes legal battle against Justin Baldoni. This lawsuit is a completely different arena compared to acting or producing, where public opinion, evidence, and legal strategy matter far more than star power. As the trial approaches, it's becoming less about image and more about credibility, proof, and how convincing each side can be in front of a jury. At the same time, you have Colleen Hoover offering a more practical lens on the situation, talking about scheduling and the realities of getting projects off the ground. From the outside, though, it appears that Lively's schedule hasn't exactly been packed with active productions, with several announced projects sitting in pre-production for extended periods. That's not unusual in Hollywood. Films can stay in development limbo for years due to financing issues, creative changes, or shifting priorities. But in this context, it raises additional questions about momentum and demand. When a public controversy overlaps with a slowdown in visible work, people inevitably start speculating. Is it just normal industry delay, or is something else at play? This leads into a broader and more uncomfortable question that tends to surface in situations like this: how the industry perceives someone in the middle of a high-profile dispute. Fair or not, reputation plays a huge role in casting decisions, partnerships, and future opportunities. Studios and collaborators often prefer stability, and when a situation becomes as public and contentious as this one, it can create hesitation. That doesn't necessarily mean someone is radioactive, but it does mean there's more scrutiny, more risk assessment, and more caution involved in choosing to work with them. In that sense, the trial isn't just about resolving past claims. It could also influence future career trajectories depending on how everything unfolds publicly and legally. All of this adds another layer of stakes to the case. Lively isn't just trying to prove her claims in court. She's also navigating how those claims intersect with her professional standing. Meanwhile, Baldoni's defense is positioned to challenge not only the legal arguments, but also the narrative that her career losses are directly tied to him. That clash between personal reputation, legal accountability, and industry perception is what makes this situation so complex. By the time the trial concludes, it likely won't just determine a legal outcome, but also reshape how both individuals are viewed moving forward, especially in an industry where perception can be just as powerful as fact. And we'll be recording everything as it happens, heading down in person, going live from the courthouse, and turning it into full live stream coverage so you're not missing a single development. It should actually be a pretty engaging setup, especially with real-time reactions and on-the-ground updates, so we'll just have to see how it all unfolds once the trial officially gets underway. Speaking of legal drama, there's another case that's suddenly blowing up online involving a streamer known as Clavicular, real name Braden Peters, who's been trending despite not being widely known before. He's associated with the whole looks-maxing space, which is basically this growing online trend where people try to optimize their appearance by any means necessary, whether that's grooming, cosmetic procedures, or more extreme measures. Now he's facing a lawsuit from influencer Alexandra Visalena Mendoza, who alleges that he promised to help boost her career, but instead exploited her. According to the claims, she first met him as a minor, and the lawsuit accuses him of serious misconduct, including inappropriate relations and administering substances without proper context or consent. These are allegations at this stage, and they'll ultimately have to be proven in court. But the situation itself highlights how intense and sometimes risky these influencer-driven spaces can become, especially for younger people navigating them. It also reflects a broader shift in online culture. What used to be simple self-improvement advice has, in some corners of the internet, turned into something far more extreme and pressured. Instead of just trying to look presentable or confident, there's now this hyper-competitive environment where people feel pushed to constantly upgrade their appearance, sometimes in unhealthy ways. When you mix that with influence